In today's video, we are going through the interview hacks for anybody who wants to land a $300,000 job. Now, the interesting part is this even works if you're trying to land your first $100,000 or $200,000 job as well. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie. I am a coach at Career Sprout. We specialize in helping people transition to a new job. On average, it takes us about 63 days, and the average salary bump is about $37,000. So with that, one of the most important, if not the most important component of your job search is your interview process. Now, one thing that a lot of people get wrong is that they show up to the interview expecting to answer questions for the interviewer. They feel like they're, kind of put on display and it's their job to answer questions really well. Your real job in the interview is to make it feel two jobs. One, make it feel like you're speaking with a friend. It should feel very friendly. It should feel very conversational. It shouldn't be them asking all the questions and you answering all the questions. Then number two, you should be the one asking the questions. There should be a give and take. You want to picture, think about meeting up with an old friend that you haven't seen, in a couple of years. If all they did was, talk about themselves, like you asked a question and then they, told you about themselves and everything they've done over the last couple of years, you wouldn't feel super great, leaving that conversation. But if they told you a little bit about them and then they asked you a follow-up question and it was just, it flowed, that feels very different. That's actually the goal of your interviews, is it should feel like you're out to lunch with an old friend, getting to know each other and what happened over the last, couple of years of each of your lives. So to do that, the best possible thing that you can do is have a couple of really powerful interview questions in place. Now, I will readily admit the first $300,000 job that I got in my early 20s, I didn't actually know that this was powerful. I was just so curious and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I asked a lot of these questions. And then when I connected with Career Sprout and I was learning their process and we were going through everything, I said, man, this is how I got that job. This is exactly it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through some of my favorite buckets of questions that you can ask during your interview. And then I'm gonna leave a link below. We've got we're building out a free library of free resources. I'll put the link below so you can join. And the questions that I'm going through right now, they'll be in there, as well as all of our other free materials and just different tips, tricks, tactics to help you land a high-paying job. Not only just a high-paying job, but really working with a company that you really admire, doing something that you really love. So let's dive in. Powerful interview questions. The first bucket that you want to focus, well, it doesn't have to necessarily be in sequential order, but the first one we're going to cover today is questions to ask about the actual job you're interviewing for. So I've got a list here of a couple of my favorites. So when you're talking about the actual job, you want to ask questions about, why is this position open? How long has this position been open? How long does somebody typically stay in this job? Can you give me an example of how I might collaborate with my manager or supervisor? Just getting like a really clear picture of what it actually looks like to be in this job at this specific company. If you are, a product manager at Microsoft, that is very different than a product manager at Netflix or, a startup. So you want to really understand what this specific job means for this specific company in this specific department with this specific manager or supervisor. So this is where most of the questions come in. We've got about 60 of them that I'll put a link below. But the next bucket of questions that you want to ask is questions about the team that you're interviewing for. So this is when you can find out, hey, would you say that my manager, is open to new ideas and suggestions? Is it fairly rigid? How does the company view creativity, individuality, things like that? Are there ways in which this specific team's culture differs from the company culture? Like, what does that really look like? How are the teams structured? How often does the team meet as a group? What tools does the team use to communicate? How does the team communicate? What does the cadence look like? Just getting a really good picture of like the actual team, the individual team that you're going to be stepping into. And then this one is maybe my favorite, and this usually comes early on in the interview process. Questions about the person who is interviewing you specifically. So asking things, and you should be able to do a little bit of research beforehand, checking out their LinkedIn, their online profiles, to ask them, how long have you been, with this company? And like, what made you decide to come here? Like, I saw you were at Nike for 12 years and then you decided to, come over to T-Mobile. Like, what made you make that decision? Be actually interested in them. That is something that goes a long way. As humans, we are wired to make connections. And if you genuinely care about this interviewer, think about how we started this video. Most people come in and they spend the entire interview, super nervous, sitting there straight as they can, like just hoping that they answer questions properly. And the interviewer is just getting spoken at all day. Like, nobody actually cares about that person because everybody's so self-absorbed and only cares about how they're presenting themselves. So it's a lonely interaction. For anybody who's been a hiring manager, it can get lonely because sometimes you're just spending hours a day having people talk at you. Nobody actually cares about you. They only care about themselves. So especially in this market, because everybody's super nervous, if you can be happy, humble, and hungry, and then, actually care about the person that you're speaking with, you will stand out from all of the other candidates out there, especially as you're going for those higher paying jobs. So asking them, their opinion on things, like, what's your favorite part about working here? How have you developed your career within this organization? Like, do you feel somebody entering into the organization today would have similar opportunities to what you've been able to see? And just really understand that person, their perspective, and how they feel overall about the company. And a good thing to note here is, their opinions, if they feel really good about something, that doesn't mean that you will also feel really good about that thing. And just because they feel really bad about something, that doesn't mean that you will also feel bad about that thing. People are different. So a company that is a good fit for one person, I'll give you a great example. Somebody that used to work on our team, she is one of the smartest human beings that I have ever met. And we realized, we have an assessment that we put everybody through, and when we were testing it out, we each person on our team took it, and she is so intelligent, she is off the charts, high performer, A player. And then we realized, like, oh, the culture that is good for you is not the startup world. You love structure, you love, being put in a box and staying in that box, and that's not how we operate. And it was such an awesome experience to just get really tangible quantitative results of, oh, okay, you're going to be so much happier in this arena. And so as soon as she shifted, it's not like she shifted because she was underperforming. It's not like she shifted because there was anything wrong with her. It's that as soon as she was able to identify, this is the right culture for me, it became so easy for her to go interview, talk to companies, and ask these specific questions about the companies that she was, interviewing, and find, oh my gosh, this one's perfect for me. And she's been loving it ever since. Now, we'll try to steal her back when we're less of a startup, but that's just a great example of knowing yourself and knowing what's best for you, and making sure you remember that in this interview process, it's not that you're just asking questions to ask questions. You are interviewing the company and the team and your hiring manager just as much as they're interviewing you, and it's your responsibility to make sure that it's a good fit for you. If it's not, it's perfectly acceptable, especially in today's market, to say, hey, you know what, it sounds like this might not be the right fit for me. I'm looking for XYZ. And that's completely okay to do. And a lot of people just get really caught up. They get really nervous because, sometimes, especially right now, it feels really uncertain. As long as you have a game plan, as long as you have clarity on, who you are and what you want, all of the fears can kind of melt away. And there are plenty of opportunities still, even today, for you to, really build a career that's meaningful for you, something that supports you and your lifestyles, your dreams. So just a friendly reminder there for anybody who's a little bit nervous, it's okay. I'll put the link below, get you access to free resources. If you even need a free coaching call, especially anybody who is, nervous about their job, we're trying to open our coaches calendar to give just a free strategy sessions to folks who need it. So I'll leave that below. Now, the last bucket for questions that you want to ask during your interview, after that little tangent there, is questions that'll kind of put you at ease and get you clarity on this specific hiring process. So, when do you expect to make an offer? When are you hoping that the person you hire will start? How many people are interviewing for this job? You kind of want to get a lay of the land of the actual hiring process within this company. And then asking like, you want to have a call to action of like, okay, what next type deal, where it's like, hey, what are the next steps in the interview process? Who should I stay in touch with as things move forward? How should I follow up? When should I hear back from you? Questions like that to just get a really good idea of, what to expect. So you're not sitting there. We've all had those experiences where it's like, we thought we nailed it, and then we're sitting there and a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and you haven't heard anything when they were, potentially planning to make a decision 3 weeks from now, and everything's totally okay. And we go through all that stress and worry for absolutely nothing. So hopefully these buckets of interview questions help you. As I mentioned, I'm going to put a link below so you can get access to we have a whole comprehensive playbook to, crush any interview that you go on. I'll put that in the resource library below. And with that, I hope you guys are having a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.